Well, with me is Chris Robert Shaw, ex-MHK, a man who has a plan, but maybe, I don't know, on what we've been talking about. I mean, let's just
observations.
2 parts already. Bringing all this back into the public areas, things that I'm sure so many people are wishing this is just going to get buried. And you bring this up again, it's going to cause a bit more...
I'm not bringing it up. The problem still exists. It was manifest by, as we've said, Dr. Ranson's determination and courage. It's still there. It's still there for and should be a concern for every single person on the Isle of Man, and particularly for those who work for government, because if they find themselves in a position where they need to be, in all conscience, a whistleblower, or if they have a challenge, they know that they're in a very weak position, because there'll be every attempt, as we've seen here, to crush them. And that's not justifiable, that's not fair, and that's... Members of Tynwald are there to deal with these things. The individual employees of government are also electors, and they're entitled to know from their members, that they're elected members, that they're doing everything possible to make sure that those people get treated fairly. And unless there's a really incredibly robust response to this, then I would say that the members of Tynwald, the members of Keys, are failing to do their duty. And they must do it. It's a difficult task, but it is resolvable. I believe it is resolvable. It's certainly possible to significantly improve it.
But don't you get the impression that people now just want to bury this and move on? We don't want to deal with it. Almost.
Yeah, until the next time. Probably.
Until the next time. Anyway, what's part 3? What you got on this?
Well, is what we should be doing. I mean,
consequences.
Consequences. First of all, we need to stop or ensure that in future the AG's department is not all powerful and an octopus with its controlling tentacles everywhere. That's got to stop.
And the solution, you think, is? Well, we keep asking you this. I know, but
you progressively break it down and provide alternatives. So the first thing to do is to do what a few of us, I think there was 3 or 4 of us, who said, no, members need to have legal advice to hand, good quality legal advice to hand, other than the Attorney General's department. Look, if the Attorney General is advising government, how can he also be the advisor to the Parliament? Yeah. He shouldn't even sit in Tynwald. Now, I believe the Constitutional, Legal and Justice Committee have already said this, and yet I don't see that the Attorney General has been removed. Further, we're not in a position where the Solicitor General is absolutely independent, and we still have a situation where this all-powerful AG's department is still in charge of prosecution. Prosecution has to be removed. Alternative opinion really has to be created.
You know what I think it is?
What?
It's culture. The culture has to change. Now, that's something you cannot put your finger on, but if, again, other examples are out there, there's a culture of just going gung-ho at this and throwing money at it until it goes away.
Well,
has been the culture.
Absolutely.
And the culture change is huge to get that through, with the same people in the same departments doing the same jobs.
Let me take your point there. That they've been able to throw money at it and get away with it. Now, the money's not there to throw at it. So let's get a grip of this and make sure that people who work in government are confident that they will be treated fairly when they get themselves into difficult situations where they have a genuine case. That single thing alone will be more influential in changing government culture within government than any other single thing.
But are the main people, the main players, still in positions as they were anyway? That's, again, back to this culture thing. Doesn't it need a complete sort of clear out and start again? No, but you can't get that, of course.
Well, then we end up in the blame game then, don't we?
I think that's what this is about. Someone's to blame, surely. Someone's got to take the rap for this.
That won't work, because all you do is replace the person and keep the system the same. You have to change the structure. I mean, I've been passionate about this structure thing for a long time, and to take you back into history, I was the first Minister of Policy and Reform, and I spent a year looking at what on earth was going wrong. Every time, for example, a major project came along, we ended up tripling or quadrupling the cost of it. And I came to the conclusion that it was essential that we needed to simplify the departments and make sure that they were delivering for the people of the Isle of Man, and that complex and big, significant issues were withdrawn from the departments and dealt with case by case in a way that ensured the Isle of Man government was getting the best advice that it possibly could.
That's 10 years ago when you did that.
Yeah, and I took that to the Council of Ministers, and the ministers were all, oh no, I want to be, a big guy with a big department, and they rejected it, and so that's why I stepped down. But that was all about the single legal entity. Now, let me just draw...
You got some more?
Paragraph, a particular paragraph, I think it's paragraph for those interested enough, it's 88. Paragraph 88 of Richard Wright's report, and he says that this is a product of a system in which each department operates as a separate legal entity, and in which the chief executive is the chief accounting officer with delegated authority from the Public Service Commission over the civil servants employed in their departments. The limited concept of government, limited, it's non-existent, the limited concept of government as a single entity across department results in employment disputes, even at a senior level, as in this case, being viewed as a departmental problem and not an issue for wider government. In fact, and as this litigation demonstrated, an employment dispute can have far-reaching consequences for not only the individual department concerned, but also for the wider government. So what I'm saying to you here is part of the problem is the fact that each individual department is an entity in its own right and behaves as such. And yet its advisors in the AG's department are the advisors to the individual MHKs, and I'm going back to repeat myself, and Council of Ministers and everybody else. Is it any wonder that we keep crashing into these problems?
You didn't mention silos once, by the way, there.
No,
that's what it was, though.
You just did.
I know, because that's what you used to say all the time, wasn't it? The silo mentality.
But what I did years ago was point at, the latest thing we've had, it's nice enough, the new terminal at Liverpool, I've been through it, but it cost an absolute arm and a leg. And it was mishandled because it went through an individual department. And I could list endless occasions where we've thrown away hundreds of millions of pounds in total because we've mishandled big projects. But here, in the depth of a particular case, we find that an external observer is saying, well, actually, part of the problem is that government isn't a single legal entity. And, you get to the point where how many times have you got to say this sort of thing until the penny drops that we cannot carry on running government the way that we are? So not only is each department trying to be all things to all people, so is the AG's department. I know that the Council of Ministers and Tynwald are worried about this. Well, I would beg them to look at the structure of government and start to simplify it, making sure that competencies are drawn in when they're needed, not built in as Beamans would have it be. Beamans are an advisor for government on these issues, historically anyway. And try to build it up to make it a sort of a UK lookalike organisation that's ever bigger. There's only 85,000 of us. We need a small, efficient government. So, in summary then, I call yet again for people to look back at the single legal entity and understand that look how much trouble, according to Richard Wright, it got us into here because we were not a single legal entity. I look for elected politicians who've been sort of loaned the trust of the electorate for a 5-year period to understand that they need to seek other legal advice other than the singularity of the AG's department. We need to break the AG's department down so that the prosecution is removed from it. And then we need to look at a number of other areas that should not sit in the AG's department, including, I hasten to add, the whole issue of signing off major tenders and sort of private sector contracts and things like that. So, and I want the Constitutional, Legal and Justice Committee to pick this up, call me in, discuss it, for goodness sake. Get to grips with this, not, oh, well, it's too difficult, and as I say, to one as one member said to me, and perhaps I'm repeating this once too often, the member of the committee that chose this guy, we haven't looked that deeply into it. I mean, that's complacent on the part of that member.
Just remind people where we're up to then, because this was laid then January to Tynwald, right?
Well,
or his report came out at the very end of January. But where are we up to?
I asked to have this sort of chat with you on this occasion because I thought it was going to be a response to it in the July Tynwald,
which is coming up now.
I can't see that response. Maybe I've missed something, and forgive me if I have. But so it was appropriate to say it now. I think we are definitely going to get a response from government on the Kate Brunner report, but I don't want to go there because I actually lost confidence in the Kate Brunner process. I started out thinking, goodness me, this lady is independent.
Yes.
And I really...
I've got my issues with that.
I really did think that there was hope. In the end, I lost confidence, and I'm not even going to... I'm not even going to discuss Kate Brunner's report.
Okay, you done?
Yeah.
And I'm going to push you again. The buck has to stop with somebody on this thing.
It stops with Tynwald. It stopped with the Tynwald.
So that's an entity in itself, right? I mean, no one person...
It stops with the members.
No one person is to fall on their sword or to take responsibility for this.
No.
Nothing at all. The life goes on. Everyone just moves on. They see the report and they go...
If you play the blame game, you feel that once you've removed somebody, you've removed the problem. I hope I've gone some way this morning to try to explain that the problem lies deep in the structure of government and how we operate.
Yeah, but I think people
and that's what we've got to
somebody to take responsibility, not just Tynwald.
No, listen, hang on. Tynwald must accept responsibility.
Well, that's an easy one to do. They can pass that one, and everyone walks off, and that's the end of it.
Pass
Great.
what?
Well, because they can all agree with you on that.
Hang on, Paul. If they just agree with the Richard Wright book, they're going nowhere. They've got to analyse it. They've got to consider it. What they've done is the Chief Minister said, look, we need to look at the Ranson case as Tynwald. It can't be just an executive review. It went to Tynwald. They sort of washed their hands of it by getting somebody outside. I've heard nothing else. This report came out on the 31st of January. What other way has Parliament dealing with what's said in here, interpreting and examining where Richard Wright's got it seriously wrong and verges into this famous, whitewash type of approach, and drive deep enough into it to understand what it needs to do to resolve these issues. They can learn a lot from this, but they haven't got to take it verbatim because he addresses some of these issues. I mean, I sort of understand this. There's only so much one man can do. The real job lies with the members of Tynwald. It's about time that they picked up that responsibility. You would find departments work better, government would be more effective, people would be treated respectfully, and the culture of in government would improve. What's not to like?
Okay, we're going to do some more of these?
If you wish.
I need to say a few words now. Thank you for everyone for your warm support in us coming back together. I kind of stopped doing things. I went on my travels, but to be honest, I was worn down and things didn't exactly pad out well when I got cancelled. I think was probably the best way of putting it.
You did.
So, but I appreciate that so many people have been in touch with me to ask if we can cover X or Y, and said, no, I can't do everything clearly, but we can give you a platform if you want to come on and do something. But there seems to be so many things out there, honestly. But people reaching out to me is lovely, but I just wish I could help them.
Well, you are very important, Paul, because I'm sorry to tell you that. I mean, but the newspapers don't deal with these things. The Isle of Man newspapers don't deal with them. Manx Radio's proved itself to be completely disinterested in important issues. So people need to have voices out there that are taking alternative views and examining it in different ways. They don't have to agree by any stretch of the imagination, but they certainly hope that people take the time to listen to other opinions.
Great. Well, now I have to say this thing, like and subscribe, because that's what we have to do these days to get your algorithms up. I don't know much about this, but there's over 10,500, I think nearly 10,500 people follow this, and that's apparently about only a small amount of people who watch these things.
Really?
But what's more interesting is more people watch outside the Isle of Man than actually inside the Isle of Man on the albums and things. So people who see these things, and how many times you said it, it has never played well, these stories we've done, unfortunately, but that's the trouble. And people see these things and they can be put off by coming here if we're not careful, but that's not
well,
for
the
us to
Isle of
decide.
Man is, to those people, I would say, the Isle of Man is a wonderful place, and if we get this right, and we can, then it would be the go-to place.
Oh, I'm going to do lists of 10 good things, 10 bad things, and all these sort of things. And I've got my list together. But if anyone wants to put it in the comments below, as they say, good things and bad things.
About what?
The Isle of Man.
Oh, right.
Because I think there's a lot of both, but
there's a lot of good.
There's a middle one which is maybe good or maybe bad. So I'm going to do those. I promised myself to put that out at some point. As for other original content, I don't know. We'll see how we go in our temporary studio here in Union Mills. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks for coming back.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, hopefully.